Welcome to the Horror Story channel, where nightmares come to life. Join us for spine-chilling stories of terror, creepy urban legends, and haunted places. If you're brave enough to face your deepest fears, hit the subscribe button for our latest horror stories. Without any delay, let's jump right into the story. The late afternoon sun cast long, sinister shadows on the cracked cobblestone driveway as the Thompson family's moving truck pulled up to their new home. Sarah Thompson gazed up at the imposing Victorian structure, her heart fluttering with a mix of excitement and trepidation. The house, with its peeling paint and overgrown ivy, seemed to brood over the quiet street, as if guarding some long-held secret. She took a deep breath and told herself it was nothing more than an old house in need of some love and care. Mia, Sarah's teenage daughter, stepped out of the car and surveyed the scene with a guarded expression. She tucked a strand of her dark hair behind her ear and sighed. "I don't know, Mum. This place seems odd." Sarah smiled reassuringly, placing a hand on Mia's shoulder. "I know it's not what we're used to, but it's going to be a fresh start for us. Besides, with a bit of work, it'll be the perfect home." Luke, the youngest of the family, burst from the car with the boundless energy of a 10-year-old. He gazed up at the house in wonder, his eyes wide with excitement. "This place is awesome," he exclaimed, dashing towards the overgrown garden, eager to explore. As they stepped inside, the house greeted them with an air of heavy stillness. The dark, wood-paneled walls seemed to close in around them, and the creaking floorboards echoed in the silence. Sarah tried to ignore the unease that crept up her spine and focused on the potential the house held. Mia wandered into the living room, her eyes scanning the dated wallpaper and the old-fashioned furniture left behind by the previous owner. She thought to herself, "This place feels like it's been frozen in time." As she touched the worn arm of an old armchair, a chill ran through her, and she quickly withdrew her hand. In the meantime, Luke had ventured upstairs, his footsteps echoing in the empty rooms. He peeked into a dusty bedroom and hesitated, feeling as if he were intruding on someone's personal space. "I wonder who lived here before," he pondered. The house seemed to hold countless stories within its walls. Later that evening, as the family sat down to their first meal in their new home, Sarah noticed her children exchanging uneasy glances. She understood their apprehension, but she was determined to make this new chapter a positive one. "Let's all raise our glasses to new beginnings," she said, her voice full of hope. The children hesitated, then raised their glasses, clinking them together. As they sipped their drinks, the wind outside picked up, causing the house to groan and creak. The flickering candlelight danced on the walls, casting eerie shadows that seemed to come alive. Mia swallowed hard, her mind racing. Is it just my imagination, or is there something off about this place? She glanced at her brother, who seemed to share her unease. For the first time, she wondered if their new home held more than just the promise of a fresh start. And as the darkness of night enveloped the house, the family couldn't help but feel that they were not alone. The first few days in the Enfield house were relatively calm for the Thompson family. Sarah busied herself with unpacking and organizing their belongings, while Mia and Luke explored the neighborhood. The house itself, with its creaky floors and musty scent, seemed like a relic from a time long gone. As the days went by, however, an underlying uneasiness began to settle over the family. One evening, while Sarah was in the kitchen preparing dinner, She had a faint tapping sound coming from the hallway. She paused, listening intently, but the noise stopped as abruptly as it had begun. Sarah dismissed it as the old house settling and continued her task. Meanwhile, Mia was sitting in her new room, trying to focus on her homework. She found it difficult to concentrate, her mind wandering to the peculiar whispers she'd heard in the shadows of her room the night before. Mia shook her head, chastising herself for letting her imagination run wild. Downstairs, Luke was busy exploring the dark corners of the house. He loved the thrill of discovering hidden nooks and crannies, but even he had to admit that there was something strange about the Enfield house. As he opened the door to the dusty old basement, he hesitated for a moment. It's just an old house, he thought, trying to dispel the feeling of dread that washed over him. With a deep breath, he descended the creaky steps, flashlight in hand. As the days passed, the unsettling encounters increased in frequency. The tapping noises grew louder and more persistent, and the whispers in Mia's room became impossible to ignore. Luke, too, had experienced strange phenomena. He'd discovered a sealed-off room in the basement, and though he hadn't been able to enter, he'd felt an inexplicable chill in the air. One afternoon, Mia and Luke ventured to the nearby park, eager to escape the oppressive atmosphere of their home. It was there that they met a group of local kids who were eager to share the chilling stories surrounding the infamous Enfield house. The siblings listened, wide-eyed and horrified, as their new friends recounted tales of a previous haunting involving the ghost of Bill Wilkins, a man who had died in the house, and a malevolent entity that tormented the family living there. Mia and Luke exchanged uneasy glances, their minds racing with questions. Could this really be happening to us? Mia wondered, her heart pounding in her chest. Luke, too, couldn't help but think about the strange occurrences they had experienced. Maybe it's not just our imagination, he thought, a knot forming in his stomach. As the sun began to set, Mia and Luke made their way back to the Enfield house. They hesitated on the doorstep, the once familiar structure now casting a sinister shadow over the street. With trepidation, they opened the door and stepped inside, their newfound knowledge weighing heavily on their minds. And it was at that moment that the true terror began. Sarah lay awake in her bed, her eyes dotting around the dimly lit room as she listened to the distant creaks and groans of the old house. The unsettling atmosphere had begun to take its toll on her, and sleep seemed a distant luxury. She worried about her children, sensing the growing unease that had settled over Mia and Luke. Down the hall, Mia tossed and turned, her thoughts haunted by the chilling stories the local kids had told her about the Enfield house. She thought of Bill Wilkins, the grumpy old man who had died in the very house she now called home. The whispers and fleeting shadows seemed to taunt her, like the ghost himself was watching, waiting. Luke, on the other hand, was fascinated by the mysterious events unfolding around him. As a curious and adventurous child, he had begun to secretly investigate the strange happenings. Late at night, he would tiptoe around the house, hoping to catch a glimpse of the supernatural. One particularly stormy night, the wind howled and the rain lashed against the windows, adding to the eerie ambience that pervaded the house. It was then that the manifestations intensified. As Mia lay in bed, she heard a voice, raspy and barely audible, whispering her name. Mia, it hissed, causing her heart to race. Fear clawed at her chest, but she refused to let it consume her. "Who's there?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I'm Bill Wilkins," the voice replied, growing louder and more distinct. You're in my house. Mia's mind raced with questions. How could this be happening? Was the ghost of Bill Wilkins truly speaking to her? She glanced at the doorway, where the shadows seemed to dance and shift, and a chill crept over her. Meanwhile, Sarah had noticed an unnerving presence in the house. It was more than just the ghost of Bill Wilkins. It felt darker, more malevolent. The temperature in the house would drop inexplicably, and she would find herself overcome with a sense of dread. She knew she couldn't ignore it any longer. As the days passed, the demonic entity grew bolder, delighting in tormenting the family. It reveled in their fear and panic, feeding off their terror. Objects would levitate before being hurled across rooms. Doors would slam shut on their own, and strange symbols appeared on the walls. Frightened and desperate, Sarah called upon a team of paranormal investigators, hoping they could provide answers and help rid her home of the malevolent forces. When they arrived, the team immediately sensed the oppressive energy that had settled over the Enfield house. Something truly sinister is at work here, the lead investigator, named Eleanor, confided in Sarah. We need to act quickly before the situation worsens. As Sarah, Mia, and Luke huddled together, they knew that the battle against the supernatural forces had only just begun. They couldn't help but wonder, would they ever be able to reclaim their home and find peace again? As they prepared for their confrontation, the paranormal experts and clergy that Sarah had enlisted for help arrived. Their presence brought a small measure of comfort to the family. They discussed strategies and rituals that could help neutralize the entities in the house. Mia clenched her fists, her heart pounding in her chest. I can do this, she thought. I won't let them control me anymore. Luke, though still frightened, looked to his sister and mother for courage, knowing he had to be strong for them. As night descended, the air inside the house grew heavier with anticipation. The family and their allies gathered in the living room, forming a circle of protection. The clergyman began to recite prayers and blessings, his voice firm and steady, while the paranormal experts set up their equipment, monitoring the supernatural activity in the house. The atmosphere in the room became more intense with each passing moment. Suddenly, the ghost of Bill Wilkins appeared, his eyes filled with rage. Mia's breath caught in her throat, but she remembered her resolve and met his gaze without flinching. Why are you still here, Bill? Your time is long past. Leave us in peace, she demanded, her voice shaking but strong. The ghost's fury seemed to waver for a moment, as if surprised by her defiance. Sarah, bolstered by her daughter's courage, joined in. You have no power over us. We will not be afraid. The demonic entity, sensing the family's growing unity, unleashed a torrent of terror, its dark form writhing and twisting in the shadows. Objects flew across the room, and the temperature plummeted. However, the family remained steadfast, their love and unity acting as a shield against the darkness. The clergyman, his voice rising above the chaos, performed the final stages of the exorcism ritual. As the words echoed through the room, the demonic entity howled in pain and anger. The family, drawing upon their newfound strength, joined their voices with the clergyman's, creating a chorus of defiance that echoed through the house. In that moment, the family's love and unity overwhelmed the supernatural forces. The ghost of Bill Wilkins, his expression shifting from rage to resignation, faded into the shadows, finally at rest. The demonic entity, unable to withstand the united front, retreated with a final, guttural scream. As silence fell upon the house, Sarah, Mia, and Luke, exhausted but victorious, collapsed into each other's arms. They had faced their fears, and together, they had conquered the darkness that had threatened to consume them. Their love and unity had triumphed, and for the first time in weeks, they felt safe in their home once more. The morning sun filled the Enfield house with a warm glow, transforming the once ominous rooms into a haven of peace. Sarah sipped her coffee, her eyes resting on the family photo that now captured genuine, untroubled smiles. Mia sketched at the table, the sinister images of the past replaced by scenes of love and unity. She glanced at Sarah, whispering, "Thank you, Mom." Luke's laughter filled the air as he raced his toy car along the counter. Despite the newfound serenity, Sarah couldn't help but wonder if the darkness had truly been banished for good. "Mom, can we go to the park?" Luke asked, his eyes wide with excitement. Mia looked up, eager to join the adventure. "Of course," Sarah replied, focusing on the present and her family's happiness. As they left the house, she took a deep breath, embracing this fresh start where love and unity triumphed over fear. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching my horror story videos. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and leave a comment below to let me know what you thought. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. Your support helps the channel grow and allows me to keep creating new content. Thanks again for watching. I really appreciate your time, and I'll see you in the next video.